Customers Matter is a podcast about customer-centred, omni-channel marketing in an age of digital disruption, mobility and the Internet of Things. It's hosted by John O'Neill, a management consultant and founding owner of Commotion, an agency specialising in customer experience design and delivery.
I'm sitting here in Newport Beach in Sydney, magnificent part of the world, and I'm with Harry Hodge, who I think can fairly be described as one of Australia's preeminent retail entrepreneurs. Harry started his life as a surf journalist and filmmaker, went on to join the surf company Quiksilver and establish and grow the brand to a $500 million business in Europe. He also served as executive director of Quiksilver when it was listed on the New York Stock Exchange and was recently appointed to the board of Surf Stitch. Harry also invested and advised the fashion label Subi, consults to an array of companies via the Hodge Consulting Group, and was, as I said, a recent appointment to Surf Stitch. He also likes to give back. He's done that via Surf Aid, where he was a long-serving non-executive director, and Surfing New South Wales, where he's deputy chairman, and I've enjoyed working alongside him and getting to know him since 2009. Harry, welcome to Customers Matter.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Before we get into the way in which retailing has evolved during your career, can you tell us a bit about your early days in the surf industry, how you started as a writer and demonstrated some early entrepreneurial leanings, if you like, to fund a surf movie?
Well, I actually started off as a racing writer, horse racing writer at the Melbourne Age, and I talked the editor of the Sunday edition into letting me write a surfing column because that's what I wanted to do, surf. And after that, I quit the Age and I started a surf shop on the Morning Peninsula with a friend of mine called the Peninsula Surf Centre. And I gravitated into making films and photography, and basically as an excuse to travel the world with the hope that the film would make money. The film turned out okay. It wasn't a commercial success, but over the years it's become a bit of a cult film now. So
tell me about the film. What was it called?
It was called Band on the Run. With the title track by Paul McCartney and the title Paul McCartney's album. And back then in the 70s, I actually wrote a letter to Paul McCartney's management just asking him, could Mr. McCartney write some original music for the film, and can we use Band on the Run for the title track? And they came back and basically said, yes, Mr. Hodge, you can use the title and you can use the song, but he doesn't have any time to write any original music. So, you know, being young and naive is kind of a pretty wonderful thing to have when you're in your early 20s.
And tell me, to even have the chutzpah to get a surf film together. How did you fund it? How did you go about making it all happen?
Well, I raised funds through some surf companies, most notably Quiksilver and Rip Curl. And that's when surf companies didn't sponsor surf films like that. And one of the provisos, we only showed product that we couldn't put credits or anything on the film, because that was the underground way you did it. I also was funded by the Coca-Cola Corporation and the Australian Film Commission. And Qantas Airways were our major sponsor and flew us around the world for 2 years.
Wow.
So it was a pretty fun time. I learned a lot. I always say to people, travelling for me is the best university you can go to.
So how did you go, and I'm guessing this was part of it, from writing about surfing, making a surf film, into the business of surf retailing?
Well, as I said, Quiksilver invested in the film Band on the Run, and I got to know the founders very well, John Law and Alan Green, and I went to work for them in the early 80s as a marketing director. And back in those days, no surf company had a marketing director, and I said, I'm good at marketing. And they said, we don't need to do marketing anyway. I went and worked with them. And an opportunity came up to get the license for Quiksilver in Europe, which I took in about 84. Went over there with my colleagues and we started Quiksilver Europe. So you can see how the line was, Quiksilver, I started a surf shop. We bought our product off Quiksilver. Then I started a surf film. Quiksilver sponsored the surf film. I became the marketing director, and then I became the licensee for Quiksilver Europe.
So beautifully organic in a way, because I guess you're a writer, a filmmaker, and a surf shop owner.
Yeah.
Now, why not a marketer?
Exactly. No, it was kind of you couldn't script it better than that, and it was never planned like that. It just happened, as you said, organically.
So what was Quiksilver like as a business, and how would you describe its culture when you joined it? Because obviously there was something fairly, vibey that is different in surfing, and no doubt was even more pronounced back then.
Well, back then, more so than now, surfing was a real lifestyle. Surf trips, get in the car, drive, travel overseas to exotic locations. And they were hard to get to. And Quiksilver stayed very, very true to its mission or vision that we, are selling a lifestyle it wasn't about making money, it was about being able to live the lifestyle and grow the business and be inclusive to the market we were selling to. Then in the late 80s, early 90s, they became serious businesses, and Quiksilver was always very, very customer focused. Alan Green was always saying, well, what will the customers think? What will the kid on the beach think? What will the surfers think? It was never about what we thought. We always let the market almost guide us unknowingly to where we could plan to go with them, rather than devising a boardroom strategy and saying, now we're going to market this way.
And how would you get the insight into what it was that the customers did want?
It was the sixth sense instinct. And you listen and you just get a gut feeling that this is we were very lucky back in that period because the business was, it was following a pathway that was very natural. There was nothing contrived about it. There was no politics back then, there was no huge turnover, there was no public companies in the sector. So it was kind of organic and it was very inclusive the way we worked together. And I guess Quiksilver globally was run by a group of people, about 10 of us, that would get together with rough consensus, because if you get general consensus all the time, you're not doing your job. And we would, have different opinions, we bring different parts of our experience from different parts of the globe, but it always came back to the market and the customer and the client, the retailers.
So I remember Quiksilver, I think, as a board short company. That was my first encounter with the business. How did it grow? What were its product lines? What did it start doing and what did it end up doing?
Well, you're right. Quiksilver's first slogan was the board short company, because we were, the founders wanted to make the best board shorts in the market. The most notable board shorts that came out were in the early 80s and were the polka dots and the checks and the stars and the harlequins. And that changed the whole surfing industry as far as board shorts. And ironically, not many people know, because Alan Green, one of the founders, who actually recently was a partner of last year's Melbourne Cup, he's a mad horse racing fan, and that's one of the reasons Alan and I connected. And he went to the horse races and he saw all the jockey silks, and they were polka dots, checks, harlequins and stripes, and he put them on board shorts, and they sold like crazy. We're still famous for it today. Wow.
Quite a story. So what happened from there? So you found yourself really in fashion, in a way too. It wasn't just about being in board shorts, it was about being in fashionable board shorts.
Well, when we took Quiksilver to Europe, the product line had expanded, but not that great. It's t-shirts and some long pants and some sweaters and some sweats, but it was still pretty basic. And we realised when we got to Europe, whoa, this is not going to work. I was in a trade show in Paris one January, and there was 2 feet of snow outside, and we're selling board shorts and t-shirts. And I said to my partner, Jeff Hackman, hey, this is not going to work. So we went to the mountains, and the Quiksilver logo is the mountain and the wave of the famous Japanese artwork, the tsunami. And we just figured that we had to connect the dots. And we were probably the first Quiksilver global territory to do that. So we started making ski wear, snowboard wear for the snowboarders. And it really led us to become very creative, because the early snowboarders wanted to be different, anti-establishment, just like the early surfers. So whereas the skiers in the late 90s were all wearing tight-fitting clothing, the snowboarders had all this baggy stuff on. So it was really an exciting period, and it was quite easy to really work with your athletes and your consumer in that environment.
So what I was sort of inquiring about before is this sort of the fashion side of the business, because really what you're describing is almost countercultural fashion, isn't it, in a sense? And so was that, clearly it was about sort of understanding the vibe, but how did you grapple with fashion? Because it's such a fickle thing, and there you are in Paris. So you had a recognition in a different line of product, but I imagine for the European market, it's even more than that.
Well, we didn't realise we were actually going into fashion, but we were. We made denim, we made women's wear, and a lot of it was kind of dumb luck or good decisions. For example, the Roxy label started because Quicksilver had never done any women's wear, and we'd ordered this board short fabric, and all that fabrics came from Japan, and it arrived in Biarritz, where we were based, and the fabric was lycra, which you couldn't make board shorts out of. So someone said, well, let's make women's swimwear, and we put it into our local shop in Biarritz. It sold like crazy, and that's how women's wear started. So there's a little bit of that morphing into, well, this is where we've got to go because we can't afford to throw the fabric out.
So now when you went to Europe, you weren't expecting to be there for a huge amount of time. Tell me what your expectations were and what actually transpired.
Well, we thought we were going over there for a good stint, start Quicksilver. It's not a big, the action sports industry wasn't big back then. Surf for a few years, build a little business, have fun, and come back to Australia and get real jobs. But as the business grew and took over, it almost was like a tsunami that we just went along with because it was so much fun. Everything we did was fun. And we would, you know, the old cliche, find something you love and do it. Well, we found it. And everyone that joined our team, you know, joined in that fun factor. And there was very tough times. I mean, you know, not having a winter business in the early days and, you know, living in the south of France with no money, and the French government who were helping us didn't want us to be in the south of France. They wanted us to move to the north of France because that's where the industrial area was. But we wanted to be where the surf and the mountains were because the Pyrenees are only 2 hours away from the surf. So it kind of happened like that.
And what was the scale of the operation when you finally left, and how long did you stay?
Well, I stayed there for roughly 20 years, and we grew from $1 million to about 600 million Australian dollars. And it was very successful during the late 90s because where we grew it well and kept the same ethos. But in hindsight, we probably grew it a little bit too quickly and a little bit too wide a distribution, because when the house of cards started to come down with some bad, poor decisions in the 2000s, we couldn't unravel that fast growth.
So what did happen? How did your time in France come to an end, and what did you then decide to do?
Well, basically what happened was Quicksilver had built its business because of, in its heyday, doing all these things. Then in the early 2000s, the board made some quite poor decisions. The major one was to acquire the Asian skiwear brand, French skiwear brand, Rossignol. And pretty well everyone knew that was a mistake except the board and the people who were passionate about it. And that really brought the company to its knees in a nutshell. And about that time, I realised my time was up. It was time for me to, I built a very good succession plan. I wanted to implement the succession plan. And also I wanted to come back to Australia and take a bit of time away from, you know, the 24/7 CEO, executive directorship. And at that point in time, Quicksilver just acquired Quicksilver Asia Pacific. So I was in charge as executive chairman for 2 years to integrate that model into the business.
So you returned to Australia, what, about a decade ago? What year was it?
About 2004, 2005.
And you jumped back into entrepreneurship in a challenging time, as it turned out, for retailers with the, I guess there was still some high-flying stuff, but then we had the GFC. Can you tell me, you know, what transpired for you in the sort of time post your return to Australia?
Well, I came back and I tried retirement and failed miserably. And I invested in the fashion denim brand Subi. And I wanted to step outside my comfort zone and learn about another industry, you know, real fashion, even though we were in the fashion apparel industry. And I learned a hell of a lot. Things didn't turn out the way they should have. The brand had some fundamental problems in commercializing the brand. And it came unglued in that respect. But the learning curve, you know, you always learn from your mistakes more than you learn from your successes, I believe.
So what would you say you learned from Subi in a way that might be practical advice for other entrepreneurs on their journey?
They weren't customer focused. They were self-centered and creatively focused. But it's pretty easy in the apparel industry. You deliver good quality commercial product in an accurate and timely manner. And if you look up each of those in a dictionary, good quality, pretty easy. Commercial product means intended to make a profit, and deliver when people want it and deliver what they ordered. Subi couldn't get their heads around that. Therefore, the brand couldn't be commercialised.
So after Subi, you were an investor, you departed the business and it struggled. What did you then do?
Well, I had my consulting business, Kawari, which has now become Hodge Consulting. I brought on some colleagues. I was doing independent consulting, sitting on the board of Surfing New South Wales. I just stepped off the board of Surf Aid. My consulting business, I started consulting for Jamie Jury Designs. Jamie's a good mate of mine, and he's building his company. He's very successful, spending a lot of time in America. So I enjoy that flexibility and getting involved with young, dynamic entrepreneurs and giving my experience and expertise to add value to their model.
And of course now SurfStitch, it's an extremely interesting business. It's ridden the roller coaster of the new economy up. Obviously had some challenges that sort of go back down, and now once more headed, I think, in the right direction. How have organisations like this, do you think, changed the playbook for retailing and customer experience?
Well, it's interesting because since the global financial crisis, before that, people were talking about e-commerce and online and bricks and mortar, but no one's really figuring out how it's going to work. And I don't think today people have really figured it out. The reality is, we know online e-commerce is here to stay, and it's a growing sector. It's all about the user experience and the customer. And I think it's, SurfStitch's model in the action sports industry is very good for that sector. And a successful SurfStitch is probably will be one of the most important stimulants to reviving the surf industry, which is under a lot of stress right now, because a lot of loyal customers left. And it's all about the customer, the user experience. We all know if you go online, you want to order your product, you want it delivered, you want it to fit, and you want good value for money. And it becomes easy. We know the younger demographics now don't watch television. They look at everything on their devices. They shop online. They don't very rarely go into bricks and mortar stores. Now I believe that'll be cyclical and change too. I think they'll go, oh, now I've had the online experience, now I want to go to bricks and mortar, like the bricks and mortar people that find online. So I think they will coexist.
But by the sound of it, probably less bricks and mortar, and probably more important to be investing in your online presence and your user experience and really trying to make it as seamless for the customer as possible. Is that
well, I think a better bricks and mortar business. Department stores are figuring this out.
What do you think that looks like, a better bricks and mortar experience? Is there anything you've seen that delivers on that?
Well, you've got to change your model. You can't use the old model. It's got to be faster market, not as many brands, a vertical offering in a department store like David Jones or Myers or Selfridges or Harvey Nicks, and the customer experience, better staff training. One of the biggest problems in Australian department stores, I thought when I came back to Australia, is you go into a store and you couldn't get served. But to be a guy in the corner playing the piano, for ambience, that doesn't help. And I don't know if today's on-floor staff are being trained well enough. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I go into the store, I don't want someone to ask me, I'm having the afternoon off because I'm shopping at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and the online experience, from what I've learned, people don't mind having that equation taken away because they are actually the shopper online and they're dealing with the device and the product. There's no pesky human being annoying them.
So really, I think what you're saying is that the physical retailing model needs to be one that thinks a lot harder about how do the people who are serving actually add value to the customer experience.
Yeah, and how does the store add value to the customer experience as opposed to go on the piano? Like, where are the benefits?
How does it supplement the online experience as opposed to simply try and...
It's very difficult, apart from department stores, for brands like a Quiksilver or Billabong to have a real strong online business because the consumer that shops online, I believe, from what I've learned, wants to go to an online department store. They want to be able to buy Levi's to Quicksilver to, whereas if you just go to the Quicksilver website, you're only buying Quicksilver. And I think it really does come back from what I've gleaned is the customer experience. The customer now has more benefits, is the bigger king than they've ever been, and therein lies the effort to provide value for money. You've still got your luxury fashion sector with Armani, Dior, Gucci and all that, but basically since the GFC people have reined in that type of spending unless you have the disposable income, and with production around the world these days, the value on quality for money is exceptional.
I mentioned in the introduction that giving back has also been a big part of your modus operandi, and I wonder if you could share with me and the people who are listening and watching this a bit about the background to your motivation for your long-time involvement in SurfAid, first of all, and maybe just explain exactly what SurfAid is, because some people may be unfamiliar with it.
Well, since the early 90s, I've always believed businesses should have a corporate social responsibility ethic in their company, because apart from being the right thing to do, it's very, very good marketing, and it's inclusive of the staff. And when I met the guys from SurfAid at a summit in Mexico in 1999, what we learnt there, the surf industry, here's this doctor went up there on a surf trip, Dave Jenkins, to the Mentawai Islands, the best surf you can find in the world pretty much for boating holidays. But he went behind the palm trees and he found incredible poverty, a 3 out of 5 mortality rate with kids under 5, malaria everywhere, no sanitation, no clean water, and he started SurfAid to do something about it. And the surf industry got behind it with a lot of individuals and AusAid and NZAid. And I read recently that the mortality rate is now down to half out of 5 kids under 6. Malaria has pretty well been eradicated, and the clean water sanitation is working because everyone knows you have to have clean water. So the educational process over the last 15, 16 years, and now SurfAid is working on emergency preparedness when you have a tsunami or an earthquake. Because, excuse me, the villagers always used to live on the ocean. Now SurfAid says, we'll live inland a bit.
So you were a director there. How long were you involved, and what was involved in being a director of SurfAid?
I was involved with SurfAid for I think 14 years. Pretty much like Surfing New South Wales, 4 or 5 meetings a year, global meetings, working with the industry and working with the government agencies to formulate the best method to achieve the missions and goals.
If we then turn to Surfing New South Wales, and you and I both know the organisation well, what motivated you to get involved in that organisation, and what do you enjoy about it?
Well, I figured it was time at SurfAid to hand the reins to someone else, and I spoke to a few people at Surfing New South Wales, and I liked the model. I've always been involved with surfing associations. The Australian Surfing Association back in the 70s, they used to run the Bells Beach contest, because surfing associations are the core and the pathway for surfing. And without strong state and individual surfing associations, and now surf clubs and surf school, it really, everyone working together as a collective really is for the betterment of the sport.
So in terms of your role at Surfing New South Wales when did you join, and how do you, what rewards you about it?
I guess the thing is when you see the evolution of the organisation. I joined about 6-7 years ago, and it was a bit ad hoc back then, and just the quality of people and the people working there really believe in it. And when I spoke earlier on about Quicksilver, when we first started Quicksilver, when you feel that same vibe and morale and ethic, you know that this business is going to succeed. And being a not-for-profit, there's a lot of challenges that you don't have as a public company or a private company. And also your responsibility to your stakeholders is very important. So as directors, you kind of have to elevate yourself to another level, which is good for anyone that wants a career as being a director of businesses.
Obviously, you love the surfing ethos, the surfing lifestyle, the culture, and I'm sure the characters it throws up. What is it about the lifestyle, and who are the people who've most inspired you from the world of surfing, and how and why?
I guess in any business, I've always found mentors when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know. A mentor is someone you talk to. It doesn't have to be someone older, it can be someone younger, but it just gives you that different bent on it. And I think, you know, to have that knowledge and scope, I mean, we never want to stop learning. I mean, I wouldn't go to a lawyer or a doctor or accountant that hasn't upskilled themselves lately. So I think as long as, you know, you get that reward from these organisations, you can see the add value, and also the age demographics you're involved with, from 18-year-old kids running surf events on the beach to, you know, ageing board members.
And what about the surf lifestyle itself and the characters that you've encountered in the surf lifestyle? Who and what's inspired you over the time that you've been in the industry?
Well, Alan Green was always a great mentor of mine. He can be a grumpy young man, and now he's a grumpy old man. We're all like that, but he was very sure on what he wanted his business to do. And some of the great characters in surfing, and they're still there today, they're just, you know, but Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew is a great friend of mine, Simon Anderson, you know, Mickey Dora, the cat from Malibu, was a very close friend of mine in France. He lived over there, and we looked after Mickey. You know, Mickey was a rogue. He'd never worked a day in his life, but he was a pure surfer. So you meet all those characters. I met a guy called Jacques Bergerac in France, who was the founder of Revlon, or a co-founder, and he was a great mentor to me. So you meet all these characters, you go along your life's journeys, and I guess in some respects you become a character, because as you mentor, you know, and guide and advise younger groups of people, it kind of becomes like that, because you become old enough and with enough barnacles on you, you can really add value to someone going through, what's the old cliche, you know, learn from others, because you won't have, there's not enough time in your life to make all the mistakes.
And does surfing itself as an activity, is it something you still engage in, and is it important in your life?
I don't surf much anymore. I probably do it more vicariously through my kids, but I stand up paddle, I snowboard. You know, it's kind of like, there's a bit of a myth when people say, I want to get involved in the surf industry so I can surf. More often than not, you get involved, you're too busy to surf, and the guys not involved in the surfing industry, they're working at banks and stockbrokers, they're going on the surf trips to the Mentawais.
Finally, Harry, looking at the commercial landscape today and thinking about the manifold challenges of growing successful businesses that meet and ideally exceed their customers' expectations, what would you say are the three biggest key ingredients for success?
I learnt there's two rules in business. The first rule is you know you have to make a profit. The second rule is don't forget the first rule. But then apart from that, the way to do that is look after your customers, from product to the experience to customer service to bricks and mortar experience with your customers to an online experience. To me, it's all about the customers. And if you take care of your customers, I mean, Facebook's a great example because it's a user experience. They love it, you know. Instagram. So if you can create that ethos, it's all about the customer. I think if you've got a good product, you're passionate about it, you have a great team of people, and you're well funded, I think with the look after your customer, I think you've got the 5 steps to being successful.
Harry, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Customers Matter. We encourage you to subscribe and, if you like it, rate and review it. Head over to Commotion.com/podcast. That's KOMOSION.com/podcast.